Good morning, boys and girls. I quick wanted to start with our Seesaw original page, our daily mission/agenda. As you came in today, you should have completed the place value warm-up. Make sure you put a check mark next to that so I know you completed it. The place value warm-up is on the next slide. It is the hockey score game. You're going to just do a quick little review of place values, the hundredths place, the ones place, the tens place. Very important in today's lesson. Moving on, you're going to do the video lesson, which you're listening to now, but if you have not done the place value warm-up, make sure to start with that. It will be very helpful to you. Moving on past our video lesson, you'll be doing some partner practice together, and then finally a ticket out the door, which will be found at the end of this slideshow/seesaw. At home, you'll be doing workbook pages for homework and reviewing your class notes because we're going to talk about something called the mnemonic to help you remember how to do long division. And it might be helpful to review it and start memorizing it so it's helpful to you when you don't have the slideshow in front of you. So moving forward to what long division is, I would get out your note packet that you have. There's some skeleton notes for you to fill in. I've underlined and bolded the words that will go on those skeleton notes that you have on paper. So feel free to copy them down as I talk, or if it's easier for you to just listen for today, make sure you go back and copy them down a little bit later, but know that you'll always have this. So starting out with some long division vocabulary, it's very important to understand these words as we begin, as I'll be using them throughout our lessons going further. So as you can see, I put a nice little visual next to our words talking about division. We have our dividend, which is under the house, the divisor on the outside, and the quotient under the roof at the very top of our house. I'll get into what those are right about now. So starting with our dividend, it is written in blue, and as I mentioned before, it is inside our house. That number is the number that is going to be broken down or divided. And if you remember back to our number sentences, it is the number that is going to be written first. For example, if you see the number sentence 150 divided by 10, 150 is the dividend, okay, my friends? And that is the number that you're putting under the house when we see our division problem. This is usually a bigger number, especially in our first couple attempts with long division. We are going to be using big numbers divided by smaller numbers. So that makes sense, but as you further your mathematic career, you will see a change to that. But for our case right now, it is going to be the bigger number. Moving on to our next vocabulary word, the divisor. If you notice, our divisor is written in green in our visual, and the divisor is the number that divides another number, aka the dividend. So our divisor is the one that tells us how many equal groups to break the bigger number into. So in our case, they're going to be equal groups, but as I mentioned before with the dividend and it being bigger, this will change throughout your mathematic career. But for our purposes, we are going to get equal groups. No remainders, no numbers left over. And if you notice that you're having numbers left over, come and see me because I can help you figure that out, because for our purposes, for learning how to use long division, they are going to end with 0 being at the bottom. And we'll see how we get to that 0 on the next slide. Finally, the last important term is the quotient. This is going to be the solution of the problem and what we're solving for right now. And that will go on top of our house in the root portion. All right, so when we're looking for our answer, sometimes I might ask you to transfer it to a line. The number at the top of the house is what is going to be written on that line. So moving into how we do long division, I have this fun little mnemonic for us to remember the steps to solving long division, and that is, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? Starting off with the D in does, we have divide. You're going to be dividing first, then multiplying, subtracting, checking, and then bringing it down. So I'm going to explain that in the next step, so don't get overwhelmed. But just remember, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? Maybe write it down somewhere. Again, you'll have this visual to reference back to at a later date. But if it helps you to write it down, feel free to write it down right now. So let's start with our example problem at the bottom. So we have 57 divided by 3. So we're going to start by putting our 57 under the house and our 3 on the outside of the house. Now our next step is going to see how many times 3 can fit into just our number 5. You're going to start at the closest place value. So that's why I had you review your place value. So right now, our highest place value is the tens place of our 57. where our 50 is. But in this case, we're just going to consider it the 5. We're going to ignore the 7, and we're looking at how many times 3 can go into 5. Now, if I remember correctly from my multiplication table, friends, 3 times 1 equals 3. We know that one very easily. Anything times 1 is itself. And just to check to make sure that I've got the highest possible number to get to 5, I'm going to try one more. So 3 times 2. And if you remember correctly, 3 times 2 equals 6, which is too big, my friends. We want a number that's smaller than our 5. So we're going back to our 3 times 1. So I know that 3 times 1 equals 3. So I'm going to write the 1 right above our 5 to show that we are focusing only on our number 5, our tens place right now. So 3 times 1 equals 3. You're going to bring it below our 5. All right, my friends, so right now we're looking at 5 minus 3. So we did our divide, we did our multiply, now we're on to our subtract. So 5 minus 3, my friends, we get the answer of 2. And next we're going to check that 2 is less than 3 because we divided, we multiplied, we subtract, and now we're going to check to make sure that 2 is less than 3. All right, my friends? And yes, we do know that 2 is less than 3. And we can move on by bringing down, which is our next step, B, the burgers part, bring down our number 7. So now we're looking at 27 because obviously we couldn't have fit 3 into 2, so we needed to make the number bigger. And we had another value or another number in our ones place to bring down. So we're looking at 27. So now we're looking at how many times that 3 can fit into 27. We move back to our multiply. Okay, my friends? And if we remember correctly from our multiplication tables, you can either reference that or you can guess and check if you have an idea of some numbers it could be. Maybe I think that 3 times 8 is close to it. I remember 3 times 8 is 24. Maybe I try one more and I realize that 3 times 9 equals 27. So again, we're going to multiply. So 3 times 9, the 9 goes in the 7's place because, the 1's place, my friend, over the 7 because we've now brought down that 1. We're now moved on from our 10's place and looking at the value in our 1's place. So 3 times 9 equals 27. We bring the 27 under 27 so we can subtract 27 from 27, or S, of does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? We subtract 27 from 27, and since they're the same number, they're going to give us 0. And here is where we can do our check. We have nothing left in the bottom, like I said, nothing left over or no remainder. And we can check our answer by multiplying 19 by 3 because that's what number we have in the top. We have nothing else to bring down, so we can't even do that. And if we do our multiplication, 19 times 3, we get 57, so we know our answer is correct. So if we follow these steps, it will help us get our long division correct. Now, I know it might seem overwhelming, my friends, but we can do it. So we're going to move on to another problem together. And we're going to remember our does, so D, McDonald's, M, multiply, sell, subtract. We've got cheese, check, and burgers, bring down. I'm going to write it up there so we can always see it, but you can always reference the other page. Now we're going to complete a problem real quick together without our steps written out, but we're going to do our number 62 divided by 2. I'll just keep it simple, my friends, and I'm sorry my writing is a little bit wonky. It is just because I'm on my laptop. So we have 62 divided by 2. We set up our division problem, and now we're going to look at only our tens place. So we're just looking at the 6 right now. How many times does 6 go into 3? And if we remember correctly, my friends, 3 times 2 equals 6. We just talked about that in our last problem. So we put our 3 above our 6 to know that we were only dealing with our tens place. 3 times 2 equals 6, so we bring our 6 underneath 6, and we're doing 6 minus 6 because we're on to our subtraction. We did our division, check. We did our multiplication, and now we're on to subtraction. 6 minus 6 equals 0. We're going to check to see if 0 is less than 2, so we're doing our check, or cheese. And 0 is less than 2. It is a really small number, so we can now bring down our 2. Right below it, you're going to try to keep these in their place values so that we know their value. So now we have the number 2 down here, and we're seeing how many times 2 can go into 2. We obviously know that anything times 1 is itself, so we put our 1 right above our 2 because we brought it down. 1 times 2 equals 2, and 2 minus 2, my friends, we already know is going to be 0. So, and our check would be if we multiplied 31 times 2. Sorry, it's a bit big, my friends. Again, I am on my laptop. I'd prefer to be on an iPad for this. So we know 1 times 2 equals 2. Anything times 1 is itself. And 2 times 3 equals 6. And check. We know that this works out because our multiplication proves it. So we've checked it. So those are our steps, my friends. Now we're going back to our seesaw, and what I would like you to do is to pair up with a partner and complete your practice problems. Your practice problems are on your seesaw, so feel free to record and write your answers on there if you'd like to, using the pen feature. Or if you wanted to use the whiteboard like I did, or an actual whiteboard, we can do that as well. It is up to you on whether you choose to use your iPad or paper or a whiteboard. And you're going to solve these problems together, but make sure you get the setup correct first. So every time you set it up, I want you and your partner to look at each other's work to know that the setup is correct so that everything else can flow smoothly. And my friends, remember, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? Okay, say that over and over. We divide, multiply, subtract, check, and bring down. You can look at this as you do it, make sure you write it down. And this is something that I want you to go home and try to remember as well. Okay, my friends? So as you're solving these problems, remember where the divisor and the dividend go, and then complete your does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers. All right, any questions? I'll be walking around to help you. And feel free to raise your hand and call me over if you need any specific help. All right, good luck, my friends.